and to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater, alongside Richard de la Cruz, who is off this week, and Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is Monday, March 3rd, 2025. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gaming Discourse, patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. You can support us for $247, $10. Get your name in the video credits, early access to our videos, and access to our Discord server, and more. A couple weeks ago, I published a Eternal Strands review. Go check that out. I'm working on some bigger projects right now, so nothing currently is being written. There's no script, but there is a lot of research and brainstorming and throwing stuff at walls right now. And if you follow us on Patreon, you'll see that I've kind of laid out what I'm doing day by day this week and kind of what I've got planned. But as far as like any new content, nothing about specific video games. Maybe something small, actually. I want to experiment with a new series, and that'll go to our patrons first. And I think I'll explain more about that probably next week. I'll see if I can do something this week. But anyway, so yeah, lots going on. Go check us out on Patreon. We have news. We've got games. What have you been playing?
So I played some more of Avowed.
Okay.
And I am still of the same opinion.
Okay.
I am underwhelmed, and I'm still not a fan of the writing style.
Okay.
And I went back to Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah.
And it is night and day.
No, Pillars of Eternity is one of the best written games.
And not even just like
the
substance of the writing, but the style is wholly different.
Yeah, well, there's prose because it's partially novel.
And playing through a little bit of Pillars of Eternity and playing through a little bit of Avowed, I think my issue is like Pillars of Eternity is very anachronistic. It has a very stylized approach to its like faux medieval Renaissance
Sure.
And Avowed is very modern. And having played Pillars of Eternity previously, and then jumping into Avowed and having that very modern approach with its writing, I think that's really what put me off.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't necessarily think you're wrong. Yeah, I just and after I've played it, I don't see a lot of the big complaints about the dialogue, I think, are not necessarily incorrect, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as like Dragon Age Inquisition. I mean, Dragon Age the Veilguard. I thought the Veilguard was pretty bad when it came to its writing, but it wasn't just dialogue. It was also like where stories went and stuff like that, and specific things that happened, and plot events and whatnot. But I have played a little bit more of Avowed. I got into the second area. It continues to interest me. It continues to keep me going forward. I like the combat a lot. I like the different like building my character and upgrading my character. And yeah, playing on the hardest difficulty, I think, really does sort of bring about all those systems, like its combat and all the different spells and stuff like that. I'm curious how it plays if you play as someone with like a sword, or if you play as like a melee character. If it's how much more difficult it is, or I don't know, if I played as a melee character, would I have a bunch more stats and stamina? I imagine I would. Does that mean blocking and dodging? I'm going to be able to do that a lot more, where I don't have as much of that as my caster. So
I did go through the intro again and play a little bit more and do more of a martial style character. And it is more building into stamina and like resolve and like getting your offensive, stats up. And it comes down to a lot of like, not exactly like a Souls-like, but where you're timing.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not just sitting behind a shield, because you could do that, but then you're waiting too long to make your attacks. So it's the dodges and making your parry blocks when you're about to be hit, which when you start to go down that line of like fighting melee and this was on the hardest difficulty. The attacks are very telegraphed.
Yeah,
and
they are.
And like, all right, I know exactly what frame to block on now.
Yeah. The combat doesn't seem hard against a single enemy.
Yeah.
When it gets difficult is when you get groups of enemies, and when you have like a caster, or there's a there's Zarup priests that'll heal, so you'll be hacking away at some Zarup boss, and the boss just keeps getting its health back, and you're like, what the hell? And 20 feet behind him is a Zarup priest, chanting into the sky and giving him more health, and you're like, shit, so you have to figure out how to deal with that.
Then you hit 2, and you have Garrus jump down and just shoot him in the head.
Yeah, literally just Trinity dodge this is them. Yeah, definitely, which I think is really cool. It's also a good way to get Kai out of tough situations. It's like if you see Kai is about to drop, you just look at tank, it's about to fire like a heat round at Kai. You're like, oh, let me just press the button and teleport him.
Go over there.
Yeah, let me teleport him real quick, and Kai's fine. He just shot somebody for me. Great. I like the companions. I'm about to get the third companion, I think, Giada, and she seems really cool. So, but the things like the cities are pretty lifeless. You walk through and the NPCs are just kind of standing around doing nothing. And I think the music's kind of a big letdown. The music in Pillars of Eternity is really good. The soundtrack is phenomenal, both in the first and second game. And in this one, it just doesn't have, it's kind of generic. It's very, it kind of takes a back seat to the environment. And I'm not a huge fan of how they did things. I don't know. I think good music can really make an open world better. It can't make the open world good, but it can make it, I don't know, more alive, more whimsical, more mysterious. It does what music does, like Halo Infinite had really good music, and that made some of those more important moments in its gameplay stand out a little more. But of course, Halo Infinite had a bunch of other problems. It's weird that there's an entire Halo game that you have never played. A mainline Halo game. There's 2. You never played Halo 5?
Didn't play Halo 5.
Man, are you interested in playing Halo 5?
Really.
It's not good at all. It is not a good game. It's not a good story. I don't understand why they did what they did with Halo 5, and that has been debated for 10 years now.
I played through 4, and I was like, man, that was an interesting fan-made game. Anyway, back to Halo 3.
How long ago did you play through 4?
When it came out.
Okay. Yeah, 4 I thought was okay. Like they were trying to take it a certain direction, and obviously Cortana died. So I was like, okay, what can you do from here? If you really want to do something interesting with Chief. I think what Halo
Cortana evil.
Yeah, which is just the dumbest. I think what Halo needs is like a God of War type revamp. Either unpack the Chief a little more, or perhaps as far as I know, what they're actually doing, which is
give him a son, name him Atreus.
Yeah, exactly.
He's actually an elite.
Yeah. Make things really confusing. Atreus is a jackal. He's a jackal sniper who have irony. There you go. Maybe he's a grunt. I don't know. He's a jackal sniper who has a cigar in his mouth and talks like Sergeant Johnson, and that's because the Master Chief had a son with Sergeant Johnson who turned out to be a jackal sniper that smokes cigars. So, I mean, real good stuff for the lore there to keep all
canon.
Yeah, exactly, all canon. And then, of course, the Master Chief dies, and then you would play as the jackal sniper, Sergeant Johnson. So that's canon. That's what the next Halo should be about, definitely. I've also been playing Monster Hunter Wilds.
Sorry.
Just jumping into the next thing.
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm still tickled by that whole premise.
Fanfiction.net, baby. Here we go.
Halo 3.
Here we go. Halo 3, Halo 4, Halo 2, the movie. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
There's a bazillion Charlies everywhere. Damn it. So Monster Hunter Wilds. So I've never played a Monster Hunter game before, and I was like, okay, Monster Hunter Wilds might be fun. I have a buddy who likes Monster Hunter, so we can do some co-op, do some monster hunting together. Monster Hunter Wilds is kind of a mess, and I think maybe the other Monster Hunter games are like this in some capacity. I know that co-op's difficult in those as well, but Monster Hunter Wilds is just... So it released to mixed reviews, and the large complaints at the beginning were optimization. I haven't encountered anything that it's run fine for me, so I'm lucky, because optimization is one of those things where you can have two people similar specs, one person runs into a problem, the other person doesn't, whatever. So who knows? But when a game has that many people talking on optimization, I tend to think that there probably are issues. But I haven't encountered. I mean, one strange thing is that I've seen a lot of textures just not loading in, specifically in the environment. So like rock formations and whatnot, instead of having a texture there, it'll just be like a JPEG, a poorly like, you know, like it'll have like the three colors instead of a more detailed, like you're super zoomed into one pixel or something, like a couple of pixels. And that happened a lot in one zone where it was just like all over the place. There were just sections of rock that the textures did not load. The game was running fine. It was running at 60 FPS. Great. But it's just the textures just didn't load in, which I thought was kind of bizarre. But the gameplay I like. You know, you fight these giant monsters. You upgrade your gear. You try and dodge out of the way when they attack. The way I have my build right now is I attack a monster a bunch of times, and then eventually you open wounds on a monster, and the wound can appear anywhere on their body. So when that wound appears, you want to try and attack that wound, and eventually I unlock like a special attack. And if I hit that wound with a special attack, it'll stun the monster, and they can drop like special loot and stuff like that if you destroy their wounds. And I think that works fine, but it's just I don't know. The open world I don't think is all that interesting, because it's just a lot of resource gathering to find. There's not
that's Monster Hunter.
Is that just Monster Hunter?
That's just Monster Hunter.
There's no like side quests or anything. There's not much else. Co-op is a huge chore. You can only join people at like specific times, and you have to like start missions. It's kind of tough to explain. It's very convoluted. It's very annoying. I don't like it at all. I wish there were, I mean, I think I speak for everyone when I say I wish there were just a way easier way to join with friends. But Monster Hunter, and of course the UI and the menu system is just vomit. It's just all over the place. And I don't understand how this can still be happening.
So which which game has the worst implementation of like joining a friend? This or Dark Souls 2?
I mean, those are pretty bad. The thing, and I never knew this about Dark Souls, but I always assumed joining friends in Dark Souls was so difficult because they didn't intend for you to actually play with friends. It was more of an organic thing where you could summon help for a little bit.
100%.
Yeah. So obviously with like Elden Ring and stuff, they've made, and I think the same thing with Bloodborne when it first came out, like co-op and Bloodborne was sort of the same difficulty. And I think in that one you had to defeat bosses multiple times. Was that Dark Souls as well? Yeah, I think so.
Well, like, the way we were playing it, because like we were all playing it through together at the same time.
So we had to defeat bosses 30 times.
Because only the host got the kill, essentially.
Good guy.
Hey, we got good at some of the bosses, though.
We did. Now, do you remember my character in Dark Souls? That was Dark Souls 2, I think. Yeah, all the lava stone armor.
Yeah.
and if I decided to roll, we had to have paramedics there to make sure I didn't break my back.
You just stumbled forward.
Yes. It was like a
I remember that
it was like a movie set.
I remember we got invaded one time.
Yeah.
And you stripped down.
Yeah, I did.
You stripped down to nothing. So you're just in the character's underwear, and you were over encumbered, so you would just stumble forward when you tried to roll. And you and our friend were standing behind you, whipping while that was going on. The invader comes around the corner, stops, sees what's happening, disconnects.
And this wasn't planned. It was just a funny thing that happened.
You're like, it was just, fuck it, we'll make them feel awkward.
Yes, but it definitely. From that guy's perspective, he
ran into an ERP server.
He ran into an ERP server and he noped out of there and probably uninstalled Dark Souls 2 for the rest of his life.
Went around. He's a priest now.
He
found Jesus.
I'm sure he is. No, but yeah. So I don't. what was I talking about with Dark Souls? But so like co-op, right?
Yeah.
Co-op on Monster Hunter Wilds is just a mess, and I wish they would fix it. But other than that, I think it's a fine game. I want to play it more. I want to upgrade my character more. I want to see more of the world and stuff like that.
The big question I have: what weapons are you using?
So I use the insect glaive, which it's a glaive, obviously, but it's got a giant bug with you that sits on your arm. It's actually kind of neat, and when you hit enemies or whatever, the insect like flies around and does damage or something. And when you switch weapons, if you switch between insect glaives, one of the insect for the weapon you're carrying flies away, and the new insect lands on your arm. It's actually kind of neat. So they're not called insects; they're called kinsects with a K. And you can like buy other ones, and you can upgrade them. So I think they call them eating or something, like actual animals. So they give you stats. So the insect that you have equipped. It's not just the weapon that gives you stats. Well, basically everything in Monster Hunter is giving you some kind of stats. But the insect that you have equipped also gives you some kind of stats, which is cool. And also with this weapon, and I don't know if I don't think every weapon can do this, but with this weapon, I can launch myself into the air. Yeah. And then I do an attack, and if I hit, I kind of stay in the air for a little bit. Okay. So if I can chain it together, I can sort of do a Goku fight in the air thing for a little bit.
Gotcha.
And if I do that enough, if I get like a high enough combo or something, I will actually mount the monsters. And once I get on top of them, I can do, different attacks up there. And if I get enough attacks there, I can do a special attack from on top of their head or something. And that does a lot of damage. So that's pretty cool. The monsters, you can remove their tails or whatever to get special gear and stuff. It all sounds really neat, and I never played Monster Hunter. I always thought it looked cool, but I just wish it were streamlined, and I don't see a reason. One, the UI's like I said, a mess. It's
and I don't know the exact UI from Monster Hunter Wild, but if I'm thinking about what it is, because I played Monster Hunter World, the world right before that. I'd only played a little bit of them, but they had similar UIs, and I think it's just this is how the UI has been.
It may be that. Yeah. That there's a core group of fans, or that it's sort of that's the way it was. They've built on top of that, so now it's just sort of
they've added things and tacked on.
Yes, it's like in other countries where you can tell like older cities like weren't made for cars because it's just there's been a city here for 2,000 years, so they've just built on top of that. Now, of course, with regards to a city, it's a lot harder to have everybody stop life and dig out the city and rebuild it and modernize it or whatever. I don't think it can't be that big of a project for a UI in a video game, but I'm not a game developer, so. But yeah, it's really bad. I've gotten used to it, like going through it and figuring out all the buttons and stuff like that, which is cool. The story, I don't know. I'm not interested in it at all. All of the characters, everybody's really nice, which sounds good, but it's just to the point where there's like no tension anywhere. Everyone's like, thanks, you're welcome, like all the time.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
There's no like, everything's okay, everything's peachy, don't worry, we're good. Like, I don't know. And so it just, I don't find it all that interesting, I guess. And maybe some people do, and that's fine, but it hasn't really grabbed me. Like, I don't know. I just don't care all that much. And, the pacing is kind of all over the place. Like you will be, I don't know, if you take on a quest and you forget to like upgrade gear, you may be going on an hour-long quest where it's just like, all right, you'll have a chance later. Hope you don't forget. And there's different open worlds in the game, and you are constantly taken between the open worlds. You don't get a second to like slow down and go mine some stuff or go collect resources or whatever. It's just you're constantly on the move, going from one area to the other, one base camp to the other base camp. You have to go talk with this person. Now you have to go to the other side of the world and talk with this other person over here. And it's just like, oh my God, there's so many things going on. So yeah, the game starts out and the colors are really drab. And there's a reason for that. But I thought that was interesting because, and eventually the color comes into the world, like plant life and stuff. But like for the first 5 hours, everything is really dull, at least from a visual standpoint. I thought was an interesting artistic choice until later on you progress and then eventually things sprout and it doesn't look as Spartan and dull and whatnot. But yeah, but when I look back on the combat, I've had fun with it, and the animations for the monsters are just insane. I mean, there are monsters that I can't believe how cool some of them look.
Mm-hmm.
There's a monster that's like a big spider thing. It's actually not that scary, but it's got a rose on its back, like a giant rose. So it spins around and opens its rose, and it throws out these little rose petal things. And if they touch you, they paralyze you. So you have to get out of the way. But just seeing the spider spin around and open its rose thorax at you, it's just like, I can't believe it happens. It looks so freaking cool. And then when two monsters are fighting each other, you just can't look away. It's so cool seeing the animations go up against one another and seeing the monsters like react to one another and stuff like that. So there's one monster who the monster has dangerous breath, but it comes out both ends.
Ah.
So, and you hear it. It's very comical. He literally has, it's not a silent but deadly. It's just a ultrasonic boom but deadly. And it's really gross looking, and if you get hit by it, you can't heal. You're like, it's a debuff, so you kind of have to. That's an interesting monster to fight because, oftentimes it's like, where's the safe spot on a monster? I don't know, away from its face so it can't bite you. Well, this monster, this guy, it's like, you gotta stick to the flanks. Like,
safest spot is 2 miles away.
Yeah,
nuke from orbit. It's the only way to be certain.
Yeah, but yeah. So the combat's fun, and I want to get back into it. But that's that's all I'll say for now. Are you ready for news? Anything else you want?
No.
All right, let's do it. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Okay, so Warner Bros. Has closed 3 studios. This was first reported by Bloomberg's Jason Schreier. Warner Bros. Was closing Monolith Productions, Player First Games, and Warner Bros. Games San Diego. Jason Schreier says the cuts reflect a refocus on WB's major franchises, specifically Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, specifically Batman. Back in February, Jason Schreier reported on uncertainty at WB Games, specifically under the reign of former head David Haddad. I'm going to read a bit from that story here. Quote, this is, again, Jason Schreier on Bloomberg. Haddad's tenure has left major gaps in its portfolio that will likely persist for the next year or two, according to people familiar with the business. The company has been counting on Suicide Squad and Multiverses to generate revenue throughout this year, but instead has ended support for both games. In the wake of this miscalculation, Warner Bros. Now has little to release in the stretch ahead. According to interviews with 24 current and former Warner Bros. Employees, a lack of strong, cohesive vision during Haddad's reign, a tumultuous period in which Warner Bros. Struggled through multiple reorganizations, led to years of ineffectual trend chasing and wasted development time. Along the way, once revered studios under the Warner Bros. Umbrella have taken reputation hits, lost key staff members, and burned through hundreds of millions of dollars. Haddad, a Harvard Business School graduate who spent the early part of his career at toy and entertainment companies, joined Warner Bros. Games in 2013 and became head of the division 2 years later. Colleagues describe him as a polished executive who does not appear to spend much time playing video games himself, something subordinates occasionally found challenging as they tried to talk through the nuances of product decisions. Staff also griped that it could take months to receive answers to the questions on matters big and small, ranging from a studio's next game to whether they would participate in the annual E3 trade conference. And of course, that must have been a while ago because E3 is no longer around. So it sucks to see Monolith go this way. I think Monolith was probably the best known studio from this group. And obviously Fear, right? Fear is one of is a lot of people's like. I saw Fear described as a cult hit, but I don't think it's a cult hit. I think it's just a well-remembered horror game that a lot of people like, but maybe there is a cultiness to it. I don't know. And then obviously the Shadow of Mordor games, which I think were innovative when they came out. And of course, they haven't been really replicated since, and that may have been because I think Warner Bros. Trademarked the Nemesis system.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how exactly that works. I'm sure there are lawyers that could talk about how you trademark a gameplay concept, or if it's not necessarily the concept, but like the underlying tech of doing it specifically the way they did it, right? It'd be like, I don't know, you can like Kraft mac and cheese can trademark Kraft mac and cheese, but that doesn't mean other people can't sell macaroni with cheese.
Yeah.
They just can't call it Kraft mac and cheese or something like that and use the process that Kraft mac and cheese does to make their mac and cheese, whatever, right? So I don't know if that's the deal there. But either way, it sucks. And Monolith is a studio that had a lot, I don't know. It's just, it had talent and had IP, was able to work with. I know there was some divisive things with the Shadow of Mordor games, so they weren't perfect. Obviously, they had, when it came to like live service mechanics and stuff like that, there's a lot we could talk about with how poorly those games handled those things. But that Nemesis system was really cool, and they were trying to work it into the Wonder Woman game. But obviously, that's canceled now. So they're not going to be able to work. They won't be able to do any of that, which is too bad. Do you have a surface level take or anything like that?
Yeah, no, they really put all their eggs in two baskets, and unfortunately both baskets didn't have a bottom. So the eggs just kept falling through. A la Ralph Wiggum, Easter episode of The Simpsons, where he puts an egg in his basket, falls to the ground. He's like, looks around, oh, I found an egg. Just infinitely. I think Ralph Wiggum is a great example of WP games.
This is something that Richard has brought up in the past, is how, I don't know, like, do some of these franchises have the weight that these executives think they do? Mortal Kombat has its audience. It's a live service game. It has its audience. It's important to the fighting game scene. It's important to other like esports scenes. But I don't think Mortal Kombat is ever going to be a game that is like a, I don't know, that when the next time a Mortal Kombat releases, it'll be one of the biggest releases of that year. But I don't think it's ever going to be a game that sells like, 50 million, like a Red Dead Redemption 2, or
it's not the 90s anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, but yeah, so it's like it's got its audience, it has its market, but I don't think it's a huge franchise.
Yeah.
That you can like base an entire business around, maybe. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. At least the business that Warner Bros. Apparently wants to do. Game of Thrones, I think, is the same thing. I mean, I don't know. There was a Telltale Game of Thrones game.
The WB Game of Thrones game is a mobile.
Are you talking about the
Conquest?
Yeah. Conquest? Okay, because I saw gameplay and it looked like third-person action and stuff like that. But I wasn't too sure how it was gonna work, or if there was a mobile economy that was gonna be. Oh well, okay. We're talking about different games here.
Oh, okay.
There is a Game of Thrones mobile game, yes, but the one that was announced at the Game Awards, where you play as like Jon Snow and stuff. But the larger point I'm trying to make here is, I don't think Game of Thrones. Like in a mobile context, sure, but you can throw out anything on mobile, and if you're a big company, and maybe it'll hit, maybe it'll miss, who knows? I don't think it's succeeding because of the Game of Thrones license, right? There's a bunch of other mobile games that are succeeding, and they don't have any license attached to them. Every 5 minutes, there's some new wacky anime universe, right? Shadow Legends of Leagues, and it's like, oh my god, this is a new universe that's free to play, and it's like, okay, so new thing that nobody's heard of. But it's selling like hotcakes and it's got microtransactions. So it's just like, it's not the Game of Thrones game. I don't think is succeeding because of its connection to the Game of Thrones universe. So really what you have there is mobile games, I guess. And once again, to the larger point, Game of Thrones, I don't think there hasn't been like maybe one good game, the Telltale Game of Thrones game. But other than that, there hasn't been like a big, huge, successful Game of Thrones game. So it's just like, if you're wanting to put games on consoles and PC and sell them on Steam and stuff like that, and it not be a mobile game, then you haven't done that yet with Game of Thrones at all.
Where's the, Diet Total War Game of Thrones game?
Yeah, we have that for Star Trek. Damn it. Which I'm still kind of angry about, but yeah, how come we don't have that for Game of Thrones? Who knows? And I don't want to sit here and say it would be easy. Making games is not easy.
No, but
it is
your
an
WB
obvious
games, you have the capital to produce these games.
Yeah. I also think that's probably not the type of game they want to make.
No.
As good of an idea as it is, it'd be awesome if you could play as like the White Walkers or something.
And here's the thing, though. It would sell.
Yeah, again, we're not just doing this for money, we're doing it for shitload of money. So it's like, would it sell to the standards that they want their games division to sell at? And no. So like you have to talk
also,
about...
it doesn't fall in line with their current business model for what they want their games to be, which is failing live service games.
Failing live service titles, yeah. And then, of course, focusing on Batman is somewhat egregious because it's like, you had a studio known for making really good Batman, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and then Arkham Knight is probably one of the most solid across-the-board game trilogies of all time. Not every game was perfect. Arkham Knight released in a poor state. That's one of the reasons that we have refunds on Steam now. But like, if you go across the board with those games, 1, 2, 3, maybe some people don't like 2, some people don't like 3, whatever. The point I'm making is there isn't one that is horrible.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and you can't say that about a lot of trilogies or a lot of game series. You can't say that about Dead Space. I don't know if you can say that about Borderlands. Maybe, I don't know, but there's been a lot more in Borderlands. You can say it about Halo. Halo 1, 2, and 3, all solid, all really good. But so it's just like you had a studio that had the pedigree, that had the talent, that had the ability to do all that. And then somewhere along the line, somebody decided that they needed to make a live service game. And that was doomed from the start. And you never needed to do that. So yeah, you trend chased and now you're here. And it's frustrating that, I don't know. It's frustrating that it reminded me of that scene from Burn After Reading where J.K. Simmons is like, well, what did we learn here? Now, of course, in that scene, those guys didn't cause anything. So their confusion is warranted because they were just sort of witnesses to this bizarre event. But to Warner Bros. Execs or people that have worked at this company, it's like, these actions that you took led to this, and it was avoidable, and I think it was predictable. So now it's like, it's egregious and annoying that if you're leaning back into Batman single player games, it's like you could have done that 8 years ago and saved yourselves so many headaches. I mean, saved yourself so much time and money and turnover, and it would have been fine. Yeah, Arkham Knights is another example of a live server, which so many people have completely forgotten about Arkham Knights, but or Gotham Knights, excuse me. But Gotham Knights is another game that is just it.
And I'm sorry, but with Batman and like having access to the Batman IP, all the characters involved with that, and having the Nemesis system.
Yeah.
There's a natural marriage right there where you have a fantastic superhero game where it has like this natural enemy progression through the Nemesis system.
Yeah, I think you could do it there. The issue with, I think the Nemesis system would work if you decoupled it from death somehow, right?
Yeah.
And I think you could do that.
Yeah.
Like the character, you could say Batman gets defeated, and instead of the Nemesis system still works, but it's like instead of when you go up to that thug or whatever that defeated Batman, he doesn't say, "Didn't I kill you before?" Like the orcs did in Shadow of Mordor.
Because, you just flavor the text like, "Oh, back for more, huh?"
Well, you don't even have to do that.
It's the bed.
It's the bed. You don't even have to do that, right? Just say, "Okay, you lost to this guy. You're going to restart at this checkpoint." But now that enemy you lost to is going to get stronger. Just decouple it from the concept of death. It's fine. It's the same thing with like roguelikes, where roguelikes like torture themselves to explain how the main character comes back to life. And it's like, you don't have to. It's a video game.
I think Rogue Legacy did it best. it's your kid.
Yeah, that's probably one of the funnier ways to go. In fact, if that was like a that game came out a while ago, so I don't think it was like a deconstruction, but that'd be a funny deconstruction of like bending and torturing themselves to come up with ways to like to revive the main character. And sometimes it works narratively, like Zagreus walking out of the river of blood, right?
Yeah.
That works. It's fine. It's with the mythology. Cool. It's the same thing with RPGs. It's like if you an RP like why does Shepard not have any skills in Mass Effect 2? Because it's a video game and progression is fun. Like that, but they have to put in like narrative elements. But it's, in my mind, it's like you don't have to. It's okay. I want to build my character again. I don't need to like have this narrative reason why Shepard all of a sudden doesn't have skills.
And they fixed that in 3.
Wait, I don't even remember how 3 starts or what.
Well, I mean, because like in between 1 and 2, spoiler alert for an almost 20-year-old game, Shepard dies. In 3, you're just on trial.
Okay, sure.
But they took where your character was in 2, and they just added more to the skill tree where you were, and gave you more options to choose from going forward.
Oh, really? So they just expanded it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because like in 2, you have like 4 upgrades on the skill. In the 4th upgrade, you get a choice between like a heavy version or like a like specific types. And then in 3, that continues with those choices as you progress further, and it's just a higher point cost that you have to go at. So you start with your character as they were in 2, and they're like, all right, and now we're going to give you more.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the point here is you could use the Nemesis, because I think that the response to that is, well, you would have to have Batman revived somehow if you did that, because the Nemesis system killed off the main character, and the main character was brought back to life by Celebrimbor, I think was the guy's name. So it's like, how would you do that in a game? You're not going to keep bringing Batman.
Alfred brings you back each time.
Yeah, he just pulls a lever. He just cloning. He just runs up with a defib. Yeah, that's what I want. Oh, dearie me, Mr. Wayne. He just pops right back up or something like that. That's what I want.
That's it.
Or it's Zombie Batman. That could be a fun one. You know, it's like every time he comes back, he's more and more degenerative, and
it slowly turns into just a horror game.
Yeah, exactly. There's an idea right there. No, but
$1 million idea, Shay.
Sorry, back to we're getting off on a bunch of tangents. You would just have to decouple it from death, and it's fine. It's an abstraction. It's a video game. So if you're playing as Batman and you got defeated by an enemy, that enemy gets stronger. You reload your previous save. If you say, well, that doesn't make sense, how does that enemy get stronger? I'm going to say, stop it. This suspension of disbelief.
This isn't like a narrative thing that's happening. This is a player challenge that's happening.
It's a gameplay mechanic.
Yes.
Yeah, and the games can do that because that's one of the reasons video games are cool.
WB, we're giving you ideas here.
Yeah, but so I don't know. It sucks because I'm sure this was avoidable. I'm sure the studios probably did not have to close, in the sense that decisions were made by sort of empty-headed executives who you know are out of touch and don't really know what works, and a lot of trend chasing happened as a result of that, and now we're here.
Exactly how many C-suite executives do you need to let go to keep these 3 studios on board?
I don't know. I've been curious about that too. Like, how many executives do you actually need to run a business? And how important are they? How important is Andrew Wilson really to Electronic Arts? Did he invent loot boxes?
I will hammer this point home till the end of time. If you can be the CEO of 3 corporations simultaneously, then it is not that, demanding of a position if you could do that job 3 times over and still appear to be doing nothing.
But so, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's all I want to say about this. I don't know I think Fear, it's too bad. If this means that we'll never get a Fear remake or something like that, that's too bad, especially with the resurgence in horror that we've seen over the past few years. And I don't know, with the reinvention of Doom, it's like, okay, shooters are kind of a thing that people are enjoying. So it's like, why can't we? And then in the indie scene, there's Sulaco, there's Tripping. I think it's either Tripping Squared or Tripping 2. I don't know, which styles itself off of Fear. So it's like there's clearly demand for this thing. You're not going to have $1 billion franchise, but if you announced a Fear remake, it would blow people's minds and everybody would be talking about it, and that would be a good thing. But that's another IP that I guess is just sort of lost to the ether right now.
Yeah.
Just kind of system shocked, tooed away, I guess. But anyway, okay, we'll move on here. Call of Duty has admitted to using generative AI Slop. I saw this first pointed out by Kotaku's Ethan Gotch, but this may have been first reported on by Charlie Intel. It only appears in the disclosure on Steam, saying, our team uses generative AI tools to develop some in-game assets, which is...
super vague.
Which is vague as hell and bothers me to no end. This is something we've suspected. We talked about there was like loading screens that looked like they were generated by AI. The one that is, I think most people may know about, is the zombie Santa Claus who has 6 fingers. There was other ones. There was like a demon, like a samurai mask guy you could buy. And as part of that, you get like a loading screen, but the loading screen didn't look like the samurai mask. It looked like a... So there's generative AI images being used in the big... And arguably one of the biggest games... Well, not arguably, one of the biggest games of 2024. Yeah. Best? No, but definitely like one of the biggest, right? So it's just like, this is happening. And this bothers me. One, because we don't know what generative AI systems are being used here. Is it what models? I mean, because how are you sourcing your data, and is that coming from ethical places? And I don't know if there is like a generative AI model that all of its stuff is coming from ethical places, and that bothers me.
Let me tell you. No.
Yeah. And that bothers me a lot. And I hate that, because that means that it's like these companies it's one more way that we are sort of ethically complicit in a way with something that we just shouldn't have to be. And also, why does it, I thought we talked about this last week. Why does this stuff need to exist? Like, if that zombie Santa Claus loading screen didn't exist, would the world be any different? So generating it via AI. Now, I am all for arts for art's sake, doing crazy stuff, if it's made by an artist. But if it's made by generative AI, nobody wants that. There's no reason for it to exist. It doesn't help sell a game. It doesn't make anything look better, because generative AI images look weird and uncanny and just bad. So you just don't need them. And that bothers me. And another thing with Call of Duty is Call of Duty has a large passive audience, just like sports games, which you're ready for generative AI to be in sports games. But it's just like these large passive audience, which is fine. People play casual games. I don't expect them to, hop onto Wired and Ars Technica and read up, The Verge and read up on the latest of whatever Dario Amodei is fucking saying or anything like that. But like these large passive audiences, I think, are just going to increasingly get more and more bullshit. Because you can, if you give it to more hardcore audiences, they're going to know and they're going to react. And I think that's react poorly. And I think that's rightfully so. But like passive audiences, these things just wash over them because there's just so much bullshit. And I just don't know if they know of the crap that they're being served. And that is really disappointing that games are treating their players like that. It's really disappointing that video games as a medium has sort of gotten to that point. And yeah, I don't know. So I'm repeating myself here, but I think as maybe Steam, I don't know. Can we lay some of the blame here at Steam? Can we ask Steam, can you require more specific disclosures from developers that use generative AI. If they say this game uses generative AI for some of the voicing, then it's like, okay, what models and how many characters, how many lines? I want to know. If you're going to take that route, then and it's going to save you time, well, then I want to know specifically like what routes and what you're taking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because I think what you're doing is you're devaluing my experience for your convenience, which is fine, I guess, whatever. But can I not get a little more information? And so does Steam have the power to say, if you use AI, you have to fill out a larger disclosure? Or can we put something at the top of the storefront? How about that? Right at the top, right where it says Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Just have underneath that a tag. This game uses generative AI. No disclosure. We don't need tiny words at the bottom of the screen. Put it at the top. Make it both. Make it a little more, or make it a little more noticeable. Make it a little more, demonstrative, I guess. Because this is not a good thing. It's going to be abused. And I think obviously there are people around the world who can't wait to replace workers and employees with systems like this. And the other thing is, like, people will say that generative AI produces bad stuff, and it's true, but that's not always important in the minds of executives, because executives don't care about quality if they can just shovel shit and that shit sells, right? Mm-hmm. So what is their incentive to make better shit? Well, one way of incentivizing people is them having integrity and caring about the art they create. But that doesn't always make money. So executives don't give a shit about that. So it's like, how do we incentivize these things? I don't know. But executives aren't going to care, because if they can shovel shit and get away with it, that's what they're going to do. And it doesn't need to be good, which none of this stuff is. So this is, I don't know, and I'm terrified of the games that I play now sometimes, because if something looks off or something reads off, I'm just like, oh God. If I find a typo, I'm like, all right, what's going on here? Like, is this a typo, or is this some generative AI bullshit? And I hate that paranoia is a part of the way I have to play games now. So I don't know. It feels like in the next few years we're gonna have a big controversy of some kind. Like, it feels like a big game, like a big AAA game that isn't Call of Duty. Call of Duty gets its shovelware in the sense that it gets shoveled out to a weary audience, shovelware. But Jeez. I mean, like a big, like, I don't know, the next. I don't want to say a studio or even a specific game, but the next big AAA release, AAA single player release, or maybe a next big multiplayer game or something. Like when it drops AI, or uses AI in a way that pisses everybody off. I feel like we're on the verge of having something like that happening. Absolutely. Where it goes from this like annoying thing that's happening on the edges that everyone's afraid of to the singular topic that everybody's talking about. I don't know. Maybe that'll never happen. But sorry, did you have...
Oh, no, just if I was going to, I'd just be hammering on points that you just said. But no, it's not a if this happens. That is when. That's a win. It's going to happen. It's coming soon.
But I don't want it to.
Well, I didn't want the Dodgers to win the World Series, so.
Neither did I. Why did you have to bring that up?
Because
I'd rather have AI generated games. I would do it.
Really?
I would.
AI generated games, or the Red Sox win the World Series.
Can I jump off a cliff?
End of the world is also an option.
End of the world. I don't want to talk about Aaron Judge dropping that easy fly ball on the God. God, you unzip me, Doc. It's all coming back. We don't have tidbits. Richard isn't here.
No.
So. Is there anything else you would like to say? Do you have a Connor's Corner take this week?
I don't think so.
Okay, I just made up that segment.
Don't play Flight Sim?
Oh, Flight Sim 2024.
Yeah.
I thought you were thinking Flight Sims in general. I was like, no, fuck you.
No, just 2024.
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. Follow us on Twitter and YouTube.com/gaming discourse, patreon.com/the gaming discourse. We'll see you next week. Bye.